Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be here with you this Wednesday night. We're live, we're national, and our phone lines are open, 833-4825-337-833-4-Valdez. Where do we begin? I don't know. I don't know if we start with getting a free plane from Qatar. I don't know if we start with the president of South Africa sitting in the Oval Office, getting a dose of reality. There's so many interesting things I want to talk about tonight. We're going to get to all of them, of course, with your comments and calls and perspectives as well. But welcome. And I guess we can start with that. President Trump doing what only President Trump can do, in my opinion. The president of South Africa is a guest in the White House, and he takes this opportunity to let him know about the Afrikana genocide that's going on. There are some South Africans that happen to be white or that are farmers, and there's a militant group that goes after them. Now, we talked about that on this show, and actually had somebody who was providing relief effort to them. And that was, I learned a lot from that. Hopefully you learned a lot from it too. I knew about it. You knew about it. But yet the president of South Africa denied any white genocide was going on, even despite Trump showing him the proof. And when he did, there was, he said, wow, where's that? I've never seen this before. And this, I think, was a very, very interesting thing, right? It really, really was. But let's see. Count Delacula, which is probably the best cut that, all right, 3. So yeah, this, again, to set the stage for you, and you've probably seen this already on television, but just to set the stage here for our conversation. The president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, is in the Oval Office with his delegation with him. President Trump is there as well with the White House press corps. And he says, turn the lights down, because he wheels in a television and he wants them to see this. Listen to this.
I would say if there was Afrikana farmer genocide, I can bet you these 3 gentlemen would not be here, including my Minister of Agriculture. He would not be with me. So it'll take him, President Trump, listening to their stories, to their perspective. That is the answer to your question.
But, Mr. President, I must say that we have, wait. We have thousands of stories talking about it. Sure. And we have documentaries, we have news stories, and that. Is Natalie here, somebody here to turn that? I could show you a couple of things, and it has to be responded to.
Yeah, sure.
Let me see the articles, please, if you would. And turn the lights down. Turn the lights down, and just put this on. It's right behind you. Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do.
All right, so now what you're hearing is some of the militant protests or rallies that we'd seen, and we played some of that audio on this program probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe 2.5 to 3 weeks ago, I should say. And again, it was very interesting. I saw a bunch of guys with red berets. They were not Curtis Lee and the Guardian Angels, but they were this group that was saying, we will occupy the land. And they were shouting, shoot to kill, shoot to kill. I mean, it's very clear. that they were taking this land that they wanted. Now, the president, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, he made some commentary with respect to this, and it was really just trying to go back and forth with Trump, I guess, in the most diplomatic way possible. Listen to this, number 4.
Let me clarify that, because what you saw, the speeches that were being made, one, that is not government policy. We have a multi-party democracy in South Africa that allows people to express themselves, political parties to adhere to various policies, and in many cases, or in some cases, those policies do not go along with government policy. Our government policy is completely against what he was saying, even in the parliament. And they're a small minority party, which is allowed to exist in terms of our constitution.
But you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can take land.
And then when they take the land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them.
No, there is
Nothing happens to them.
There is criminality in our country. People who do get killed, unfortunately, through criminal activity, are not only white people. Majority of them are black people. And we have now
The farmers are
neutralized.
black. The farmers are not black.
We
I don't
now-
say that's good or bad, but the farmers are not black. And the people that are being killed in large numbers, and you saw all those grave sites, and those are people that loved ones going, I guess on a Sunday morning, they told me, to pay respect to their loved ones that were killed. Their heads chopped off. They died violently. And, we're here to talk about it, and I didn't know we'd get involved here.
There we go. So that's President Trump again going back and forth here, trying to make the case. And what I think is interesting here is the president's response, not President Trump, but President Ramaphosa, when he said there are people that die. There is criminality in our country, and there are people that die as a result of criminality in our country, and the majority of them are black. This is I'm sure it's a statement of fact, right? You could say the same thing in our country too. The issue is when someone is targeted for being a minority, right? That's the issue that we've always faced in America, where we say, oh, they're coming after these people because of their race or because of their religious belief or because they are somehow in the minority, right? So you can make all the statements of fact you like. I mean, I could probably make a statement right now. I'm going to guess. Most people in America are white, right? That's probably true. So summarily, a lot of things are probably white people, right? That makes sense because that's the majority of people. That doesn't mean it holds true in every situation, but it probably holds true in most. But that's not the issue, right? If we were talking about the unborn child, let's just say, right? How many children are aborted? This is a unique number, right? That affects certain people more than others. So sometimes you have to draw attention to things that are unique, which is what I think President Trump is doing. Another example in Asia, the Uyghur Muslim, right? These are the Muslims in China. They are a minority. So are we to say that the majority of people that die in China are Chinese? Great. Sorry. And I don't mean great. I mean, okay, understood. But that's not the point here. The point is we're talking about you're killing people because they're Muslims, because they're not Chinese. That's the point, right? And President Trump's making the same exact case here when he's saying the farmers are not black. And he's saying, and then he adds, I'm not saying that's good or bad, but the farmers are not black. He's making the case that this is an anomaly to the statement of fact that most people that die from criminality are black. Okay, I got it. I'm sure most people that die in China are Chinese. That doesn't change the fact that there's a genocide against the Uyghur Muslim. So that, to me, was very interesting that the president of South Africa, by no means an uneducated man, by no means, someone that's aloof This man seems studied. He seems aware. And the fact that he was unaware of certain things, or at least claiming to be unaware, just was surprising to me, right? This seemed like somebody who really knows what's going on and has his finger on the pulse. So we're going to continue discussing President Trump's calling out of the genocide of South African farmers during his visit with President Cyril Ramaphosa in the White House throughout the evening tonight. I also want to get into some additional conversation because there really is plenty to talk about. And part of that is going to be about this. I also want to talk about what do we expect to happen with everything that's happening, geopolitically, plus the deep state. They, President Trump has vowed to obliterate the deep state, and I think he's doing a pretty good job. But yet, every now and again, little bits and pieces of that deep state come rearing their ugly head. So we're going to talk about all of that straight ahead with our guest, Lee Smith. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
What would you like President Ramaphosa to do about the situation that we've just seen on the screen?
I don't know. Look, these are articles over the last few days. Death of people. Death. Horrible death. Death. I don't know.
But you know that
To pick anyone, white South Africans are fleeing because of the violence and racist laws. And this is all, I'll give these to you. So when you say, what would I like to do? I don't know what to do. Look at this. White South African couples say that they were attacked violently.
President Trump, when will you go and see for yourself if it is?
Well, I could do that. Look, here's burial sites all over the place. These are all white farmers that are being buried. And he asks about a jet that was given. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You are so bad. You're such a bad reporter.
Bad reporter. He's talking about NBC's Peter Alexander. And again, President Trump calling out President Ramaphosa in the Oval Office today about the death, horrible death of all of these South African farmers. And the president seemingly unaware of a lot of what's going on and making a statement that I would say was lacking political savvy when he said that most of the people dying as a result of criminality in South Africa are black, which doesn't really answer the question of what President Trump was talking about. So, and then, of course, he goes on to beat up Peter Alexander from NBC News for making a comment. And I want to speak with somebody who is a good journalist and a good author, and that would be none other than Lee Smith, a journalist and author. He's got plenty of books to his name, very, very good ones. And Lee Smith is with us now. Lee Smith, welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Rich. It's always a pleasure to be speaking with you. Again, it's great to just be speaking with you, period, but also you always have really good, interesting things to speak about. So thanks so much again.
Oh, my pleasure. And likewise, ditto. I feel the same way. And that's why I'm calling on you on this stuff because, right. I know you're a D.C. guy, even though you are the other Puerto Rican conservative, as I always allude to. And this is interesting to me because I think President Trump, nothing surprises me with him, right? I think he's always a step ahead of a lot of people. Great that he's calling this out. A lot of people are upset that he's doing it because the farmers happen to be white and that he's not calling them out for other things, which I think is a stupid point to make. But again, I understand for those that want to trash him and Republicans in general, they want to make it seem like, well, of course, this is the right wing, and they're of course white supremacists, and I get that. So that's their fodder. But more importantly, I think the president really didn't. President Ramaphosa, I'm talking about. I really don't think he gave a satisfactory answer. But do you think I'm being too harsh?
No, I don't think you're being too harsh at all. Look, one of the things I really appreciate about President Trump is, this is a story that we've all been following and we've all been appalled by. That's been in the news for decades now, right? The stories of different white farmers, horrible murders, tortures, rapes, just really grisly, ghastly stuff. And so Donald Trump, being a normal person, he's heard these stories. And so he's in the White House now. He's the president of the United States. And he's like, yeah, wait, I can actually do something about this. This is not right. This is nonsense. How about some of these folks come here? I bet they're farmers, and we all know how awesome farmers. I bet these people are really productive. But yeah, I mean, again, we all know this has been happening. And there are some people, I'm sure, who, for reasons of so-called racial justice, they don't want this news coming out. And of course, there's some grisly people who think it's really bad people who think it's a good thing. But Donald Trump, being a normal person while being the president of the United States, is like, yeah, well, I can contribute to making some people's lives better. So why not? So for me, that's the big thing. It's something that we've all known is going on, and here he's doing something about it and talking about it. Right? People won't even talk about it in Washington, right? Because you look like racist if you're sticking up for white people who are being killed and tortured and raped.
Really, really good point. And I think the second point you made there was probably the biggest one that escaped even me, because I think you're right. I looked at it like Trump is trying to right a wrong. And I think he's typically like that. He's that guy that likes to level the playing field. But I think, moreover, he says, you know what, I'm going to invite this guy to the Oval Office because that is going to generate headlines. You can't escape that, right? They're not going to say, oh, you know what, we're not going to cover this White House visit. They have to cover it. And now this is inescapable, right? This was something that media agencies and journalists globally have been reporting on very sparsely and ignoring in large part. And now they have no choice. They're going to attack Trump. They're going to say this. They're going to say that. But they have to talk about the premise of the whole thing.
Right. I mean, there's always, well, there's not always, but there's sometimes drama with those Oval Office meetings. I mean, we all remember what happened in February. I believe it was February when Volodymyr Zelensky went in there and he and the president got into it. And that was also instructive because you realize that the president will do that. Then he'll also come back for matters of national interest, and he'll bury the hatchet and he'll move on and try to do what's best for the American people. But yeah, you can use that. You can use the Oval Office. You can use the position itself as a platform to do important things. And again, yeah, that's one of the great things that Donald Trump has done. Let's do some important things here that are not normal Washington things, that are regular human being things. How do we protect different people and do this and that? Yeah, it was great.
Outstanding. Lee Smith, stick with me. I want to continue to get your analysis on what you think is happening with Ukraine and Russia, Trump trying to intervene there. I also want to get your take on a couple of other geopolitical things and an update on the deep state, because I know you keep your finger on the pulse of that. Folks, we're coming right back with Lee Smith, journalist and author, and me, Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
While the United States and Israel are close allies,
Bibi, I want to say it's an honor to have you with us.
They differ on a key, delicate foreign policy issue: how to handle Iran's nuclear ambitions. On Wednesday, CNN reporting U.S. officials believe Israel is planning to attack Iran's nuclear sites. Such an attack would go against President Trump's commitment to finding a diplomatic solution.
I don't like permanent enemies. I want to make a deal with Iran.
The U.S. and Iran are in direct talks. Last Friday, Trump confirmed the U.S. had given Iran a nuclear deal proposal and encouraged Iran to accept the deal. Earlier this month, we spoke with Danny Citronowicz, an expert on Iran with the Institute for National Security Studies, an independent think tank based at Tel Aviv University.
For the U.S., the most important thing is not allowing Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
And I agree with that part of the statement, but I think overall the reporting that we're hearing that the Israelis are planning to attack Iran's nuclear facilities are, I think, not largely founded in entire truth. We have Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in a press conference with some translation saying that he's prepared for the possibility of a ceasefire to bring back hostages from Hamas. That's a far cry from an attack. Listen to this.
Thanks to the valor of our warriors and thanks to the decisions we have made, we have brought back 197 hostages to this day, of them 148 live hostages, 148. We are certain that there are still 20 live hostages and up to 38 who are dead, and we will bring them all back. I would like to remind you that at the beginning of the war, there were those who said that perhaps we will not be able to bring a single hostage back. That's what they said, a very senior position holder. But I believed differently, and I took action to that direction, and that way has proven itself. We will have the opportunity for a temporary ceasefire to bring back more hostages, and I want to reiterate, a temporary ceasefire. We are prepared for that.
So you've got the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, saying he's prepared for a temporary ceasefire, and you've got CNN saying that he's going to war to dismantle nuclear facilities. Now, look, I don't doubt that can be something that happens in the future, and they could simultaneously exist. But it seems in large part that the left within the media has been pushing a narrative about the Israelis kind of going rogue, going against Trump. And I think this is pretty far from the truth. But I want to get some input from our guest, Lee Smith, author and journalist. Lee Smith, what do you think?
Well, personally, Rich, it's very frustrating for me because, I wrote Plot Against the President came out in 2019 when I named all the names of all the press, all the people who were doing different things to jam up Donald Trump. And I've been writing about media for decades. So I know who all the players are. I know what they're doing, but I've explained it to people too. So to see our colleagues, our friends, our followers on social media, people on the right, fall for this, I kind of, you got to throw up your hands, and it's not like they have to get into the details. It's CNN. So anyone who's leaking to CNN is not a friend of Donald Trump, is not a friend of the U.S.-Israel alliance. It does, however, unfortunately appear to be leaks sourced to American officials. And I think this is very important for everyone to understand going forward. There are a lot of snakes and schemers in the administration, and they're not all deep state. Some of the people are people who should be on side. They were appointed by Donald Trump, but nonetheless, they're not on side. So that's a very important thing for people to understand going forward. We should talk about Israel and the United States separately, and that is to say, I just got back from D.C., where I was at a Middle East conference, and I was explaining to people there, I'm like, we're in a unique communications environment here where you have a whole bunch of different people saying different things. It's not just the left-wing media. It's not just foreign players like Iran, like the Europeans, like Qatar, right? You have also a problem inside of Israel where you have a very large faction against the prime minister, against Bibi Netanyahu. But also you have, Rich, again, I find it a tragedy. You have on our side, on the right, on the MAGA right, you have a very, very vocal and active anti-Israel faction. So they're really complicating what's actually going on. And I try to encourage people like, look, listen to what Donald Trump is saying. Okay, you're not going to get real information from CNN. You're not going to get it from the New York Times. You're not going to get it from the Washington Post. Listen to what Donald Trump is saying. Donald Trump is a busy man. He's working on many things, including the tariff regime, including the tariff regime against China. But when he talks about Israel and when he talks about Iran, he talks about it very clearly. And what has he said about Iran? He said, I think they can have a good country, a great country, and they can have a great future. And I hope that we can resolve this peacefully, but they can't have a bomb. And if we have to, we'll resolve it non-peacefully. And they'll see things that they thought unimaginable. So that's Donald Trump being very, very clear about what's happening. And everyone is online. You'll remember that there have been different people on the administration who seem to be sending little fuzzier messages, right? Some of them just because they don't know, and some of them maybe they were messing around a little bit. But Donald Trump has them all in line now, and what are they saying? Totally dismantling the Iranian nuclear weapons program. So that's the way it's going. And on that, Israel and the United States are in perfect alignment. All right, we don't know exactly. Maybe Bibi is actually saying this. And if he is actually saying this and going around on this, maybe he feels that it's helping Donald Trump in negotiations. Maybe Donald Trump feels it helps him in negotiations. Hey, help me out here. Give me a break. I got the Israelis, and I can't keep them on the leash. These guys are daring to get a piece of you. You got to sign, and you got to get out of here, and you got to take care of your stuff. I can't hold them back much longer, Ayatollah. You got to give yourself a break here. You're not doing me any favors. You're not doing the Israelis any favors. It's for you and your people. You got to sign. These people, Bibi, lovely man. You'll love him, but he's a nut. He will tear you up. So we don't know exactly the details of what's happening, but the idea that there are divisions between Donald Trump and the Prime Minister of Israel. Again, these are in places. In different media venues like CNN, leaked to reporters like Natasha Bertrand, who are very hostile to Trump, and the people who are leaking them, whether they're Trump appointees, whether they're Trump officials or not, these are people who are hostile to Donald Trump's policies and the future that Donald Trump campaigned on to become the 47th president of the United States. These are people who are trying to undermine Donald Trump, and we should be attentive because, Rich, you want to talk a bit about the deep state? I'll tell you what I saw in Washington.
Yeah, and that was just to say, I think that opens up the door to the deep state, which you're an expert on. And I know some of them are deep state, some of them may not be, but it's clear to me that there are people. We've seen Tulsi Gabbard firing people from her shop. We've seen Pete Hegseth firing people from his shop. So there's clearly some people that aren't playing ball.
She didn't fire them. Donald Trump fired them. She didn't fire them. Back from Washington.
Tell me more.
Back from Washington, here's what I see. I see a lot of people working hard. Obviously, Donald Trump is right at the top. I see a lot of people determined to fulfill Donald Trump's agenda.
Yeah.
Right. But I also see a lot of people messing around. I see a lot of people playing to block. And these are Trump appointees. These are cabinet officials. There are people who are messing around, and there are people who are obstructing Donald Trump. And you know what, Rich? It's quite possible if they keep at it. I know a lot of people are talking about the midterms. I'm not making political predictions, right? Mm-hmm. What's going to happen in 2026? But I'll tell you, in 4 years, in 2028, if these people keep messing around, and I'm not just talking about Republican lawmakers, in the House or in the Senate, I'm talking about people who are supposed to be answering to Donald J. Trump. If these people keep messing around, the American people are going to be in a much worse place in 4 years than we were even a year ago. Because why? Because it's very important for everyone to remember that no matter how nuts, how bad Kamala Harris was as a candidate, she still got 70 million votes. Those people are all still there. All the nuts are still there. So if we squander this very important opportunity and Donald Trump does not get to implement his program for America to make America great again, and we're talking about economic security, we're talking about national security, we're talking about growing families, we're just talking about a beautiful vision of America, making America great again. And insofar as there are people who are getting in the middle of this And again, it's not all. We're not talking about the Andrew McCabe's or the James Comeys or the John Brennans, right? This is bad. And if these people are getting in the way of Donald Trump's agenda, I am sure, Rich, that you and your awesome audience will join me in pointing these people out, because these people are going to have a lot to answer for. Obstructing Donald Trump's agenda, people who are nominally working for him, obstructing his agenda. Boy, oh boy, those people are going to be walking the plank in 4 years. I'll put it like that, because we can't afford to see America in a bad place like that again.
I agree. If you're Donald Trump or an advisor to him, who do you fire right now?
We should save that for another time. I mean,
okay.
The press has so many different things to do, and it's just rotten. The people who are not implementing his agenda and who are messing with him, doing different stuff. Well, how about this? I mean, you mentioned the name before. I mean, Donald Trump said, "Here are the people I don't want coming back in my administration. All these people who are affiliated with the Koch network." And who's pushing them? Who keeps pushing them into the office of the Director of National Intelligence? Well, it appears to be the Director of National Intelligence. Why? What is going on there? Like, Donald Trump didn't give clear enough orders saying we don't want this. This is not what I'm asking for. So again, this is an example. There's a lot of that stuff going on there, and it's bad. And believe me, I'm on it, Rich, and I'm going to report it all out, and the American people are going to know exactly who's obstructing Donald Trump's agenda. That said, I want to also tell people that there are amazing officials like Dr. Jay Bhattacharya at NIH, the director of the NIH. Wow, man, what a great guy. I had an opportunity to speak to him. He is just, I'm telling you, if your audience got to hear him, just what he said.
Yeah, we've had him on the show a few times.
Oh, you have? Okay, so you know what a moving and inspiring
brilliant,
figure.
sincere.
Great guy. All right.
Yeah, I'm hoping now that he's in D.C., maybe we can have him back on again. I got to take a pause here, Lee Smith, but I want to come back because I had the one follow-up if you wanted to call anybody out. And the second follow-up was you mentioned Kamala Harris and those voters still being there. And I wanted to get your take on where you think they go with a lack of leadership in the Democrat Party. So can you stick around?
Yeah, sure.
You bet. Stand by, folks. We're coming right back with Lee Smith.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Richie V, always great to be on your show. You're a good man and a class act.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
If you don't see Chuck Schumer and Jeffries on there, and you don't see some of the other big names like Harris, it does suggest some confusion in the general public about who's really leading the party right now, no?
There's no leader of the party. Okay, and the party doesn't have a message. Let's get over that right now. We can fight back. We've got a lot of fighting back to do on the legislation is coming. We got our elections coming up. But the way that the party has a leader is a presidential nominee. We're not going to have one until 2028. But boy, have we got some talent out there. And I don't have a very favorable opinion of the Democratic Party, and I have no idea who the leader of the party is. And they're not even disturbed because Democrats are going to pick their own leader. It's not going to be picked by the press. It's not going to be picked by Poland. It's going to be picked by Democratic voters, and that'll have to come in due time. But I don't think the party is in near as bad shape as it's being portrayed to be. Look, we lost the election. I don't like the party. I don't blame the party reputation for being low, but I think that if AOC wants to run for president, she gets the nominee, and God bless you. You are the leader of the Democratic Party. Whoever gets that nomination is going to be it. And that's all I'm waiting on.
Well, here we backed into some intra-party news. You heard it here first. James Carville, once a critic of the AOC podcast landscape, now says, if you win, you win, and you got his support.
If you win, you win.
That, of course, is James Carville, the Ragin' Cajun, pollster to President Clinton, advisor to President Clinton, big Democrat strategist, on with Ari Melber on MSNBC, saying that AOC is 20 points ahead of Kamala Harris in the latest poll for who the leader of the party is. And the Ragin' Cajun saying, we have no leader and we have no message. Lee Smith, what do you think?
Well, I mean, they have a message. I mean, I sure don't like it. But as I said, I mean, they got 70 million votes with Kamala Harris sending that message. I hear people talking all the time, well, I think Democrats and I think Americans realize that after the excesses of the Biden years, that was so nutty that we just want to return to normalcy. And I keep telling people again and again, Kamala Harris got 70 million votes. And which should shock people back into reality. They want to pretend. People want to say, no, you don't get it, Lee. They're gonna bounce back toward moderation, just like after the Democrats lost with Michael DeCox in 1988. That's when they came up with Bill Clinton, right? Well, I want to remind people the difference between the educational system in this country in the 80s and now. Right, we've seen since October 7th, we've seen fanatical college students, tear apart their campuses, tear apart American cities, New York, Washington, on behalf of what? On behalf of Arab terrorists. That's part of their base. Now, it's not all of their base, but that's an important and influential part of their base. So when people are saying, no, they're going to go back, look at what they're doing to John Fetterman. Now, it appears that John Fetterman is a pretty normal centrist Democrat on lots of issues. Not everything, but on lots of issues. And what are they trying to do? The media is trying to kill him.
Yeah.
They're all trying to destroy him. His own staff is trying to destroy him. So that tells us where the Democrats are and who they are. And look, for a long time, the leader of the party has been Barack Obama. Barack Obama, this is frustrating too, Rich. I mean, you and I have been talking about this for ages. But the minute that Joe Biden threw his hat into the ring, for the 2020 nomination, it wasn't Joe Biden throwing the hat into the ring, right? Yeah. It was Barack Obama. So now it's ridiculous to hear all of our friends on the right saying, who's been running the country since 2020? It's like, hey, we all knew it, and we said it at the time. Why are we pretending now that there's something mysterious that happened that we missed? We didn't miss it.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, even Biden said it in a tongue-in-cheek kind of way. And I mean, Obama himself, right?
Right. So everyone knows what happened. Are we going to see this? Are we going to see the same thing in 2028? I don't know. All I know is I agree with Carville. Basically, they're not in bad shape. Because why? What's the big indicator? Kamala Harris, one of the worst imaginable candidates, not even as a real thing, but just if you put that together and said, yeah, here's a candidate, she still got more than 70 million votes. So Americans,
70 million.
It's up to all of us to hold these guys. And I'm not just talking about the lawmakers. I'm talking about the administration too. They have to do their work, and we got to make sure they do it.
Folks, we're on with Lee Smith. I've got to hit a break here, but folks, follow him on X, also known as Twitter, at Lee Smith DC, Lee Smith DC, and you can get all of his amazing reporting on there. And Lee Smith, I want to thank you for being here, brother. You are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thank you, sir. God bless.
Thank you, Rich. Have a great night. Bye. Thanks.
You bet. You too. Amigos, we come right back. Your thoughts, calls, and reactions straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, we continue your thoughts, calls, and reactions with open phones across America. 833-482-5337 is the phone number. More discussion, more topics. Wait till you hear about what's going on in California. Plus, there's just a lot on the agenda tonight. So make sure you keep it locked. Don't miss an hour of the program with me, Rich Valdez. Hasta la próxima.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Wednesday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national, 7 minutes past the top of the hour, and we're taking your calls in a little bit. 833-4825-337, 833-4-Valdez. And, of course, while all sorts of things are going on in, in the world, right? You've got President Trump confronting the president of South Africa over the Afrikana genocide. Of course, the Afrikaners are the farmers that are there, white South Africans that seem to be murdered because they're white and their land is being taken. It's a decades-long battle that we had a report on not too long ago from a Christian relief organization that was out there providing aid to them. And now I'm going to suppose that is an international story. Right? It'll start with something like Trump spreads conspiracy theories, but it'll be reported on. It'll be in the major papers. And good. Very good. I'm glad that's going on. You also have the Federal Trade Commission targeting the industry that is pushing transgender procedures on children. Good news on that front. We've got the Secretary of HHS, Department of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., going back and forth with members of the Senate. I played you some clips of that yesterday of him and Patty Murray. There's a little bit more on that. Maybe we'll get to that in a little bit. And really just a bunch of other things. The Chinese are upset with the proposal that President Trump unveiled yesterday for a $125 billion Golden Dome missile defense system. That was interesting. And there's another story that I want to get into a little bit later, but I'm just going to save it so I don't put too much out there. But interesting things that are occurring, right? Interesting indeed. Lots of discussion around this visit from the president of South Africa. Lots of discussion about what's going on politically with all out crazy AOC and how she's 20 points ahead of Kamala Harris, who literally just ran for president. And, of course, the left within the media are nervous about this. We heard that audio a little while ago. And it's always, I guess, enjoyable for me to hear the folks at MSNBC interviewing a former Clinton person and really getting, almost nervous, right? Nervous about what are we going to do? Who's going to be our candidate? It's great. It's a great situation to be in. Again, I think I'm unpopular opinion here. I'm in the minority in thinking AOC for president all day, every day. Why not? Just imagine, right? Imagine a debate between whoever might compete for president after President Trump's term, right? Of course, you've got J.D. Vance, who's in a good position should he want to run as vice president. You've got Marco Rubio, who's run for president before, who's absolutely brilliant, and currently serving as Secretary of State. You've got, by that time, I think he'll be former Governor DeSantis, who will have completed his 2 terms as governor of Florida. And any one of these people that I'm bringing up here, and those are just 3 that I'm mentioning. You might have Vivek Ramaswamy might come back into the fold. You never know. We're talking about 3 years from now. But imagine any one of those guys debating my least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, all out crazy herself. Just imagine. Imagine what that would look like. I mean, man, I don't even think I can make a joke about it. I think that this would be so brutal for her. I mean, really just, it would be brutal. Absolutely brutal. So I can't wait. Selfishly speaking, can't wait. I think that she's due. She's next in line for the coronation. I think that's what we need, a young, vibrant Democrat socialist to face off against whoever the MAGA movement puts up. Amen. I'm all for it. Hopefully you are too. Anyway, we're going to talk about some immigration this hour. Lots of things going on. You've got a judge ordering the Trump administration to maintain custody of illegal immigrants that are being deported to South Sudan. You've also got a very interesting turn of events on what's going on in California. Their sanctuary city policies aren't being accepted anymore. You've got the United States Attorney for the District of California saying, nope, not playing that game. We're not doing it. You get in the way and you keep our criminal aliens that we have a criminal warrant for, and we're coming for you. So we're going to get into that, of course, in a little bit as well. Then we also have some conversation after that with Dr. Gregory Wrightstone, who'll be joining us to discuss chemtrails. Are they real? Are they conspiracy? As well as a bunch of other topics on climate change, the environment, and etc. So plenty to get into. And remember NewsGuard? That was that agency that was supposed to be the arbiter of truth that decides whether you require a fact check or not and what the truth is or not. And it was funded in large part by the United States federal government. Well, they're now evaluating the same reporters and journalists that covered up Joe Biden's mental health decline and the scandal associated with it. And guess what? They say they still give these people high marks because they're terrific. And I got to say, that's disheartening to say the least. Really, really is. And all I can say is what's happening with Joe Biden is an abuse. As a matter of fact, it's an elder abuse. Last night we had Dr. Elaine Healy on the show. We talked about this elder abuse that she filed a complaint with the Delaware health officials. And in today's New York Post, I see a headline: "I'm a geriatric doctor. Joe Biden's plight shows telltale signs of elder abuse." And it's a piece, an op-ed penned by none other than Dr. Elaine Healy, who was on our show last night, talking about this very, very issue. So kudos to her and the Post for carrying a story that we broke way before they did, hours, probably half a day before they did. That's the beauty of being on at night. And that's always a pleasure. So anyway, keep it locked right here. We're going to get into a bunch of things tonight, and I think you're really going to enjoy the conversation. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
In a Fox exclusive, you're watching an incredibly rare interaction as the jail in Los Angeles transfers an illegal alien to ICE custody. The sanctuary jurisdiction forced to hand this Mexican national over thanks to a first-of-its-kind federal operation.
With this operation, we're going to be neutralizing California's sanctuary state policies.
Bill Asaley is the U.S. Attorney in L.A. and the architect of Operation Guardian Angel.
California is the testing ground on this. We are one of the largest sanctuary jurisdictions.
All right, guys, thanks for circling up.
So how does it work? Asaley has created a federal task force made up of ICE, HSI, FBI, DEA, and ATF, all working together out of this office in downtown L.A.
How's his criminal history? He's got the domestic violence.
They scan these criminal databases daily to find illegal aliens in local jails who have been previously deported from the United States.
We have a warrant for your arrest.
If they've returned to the U.S., they've committed a federal felony known as illegal reentry. An assailee's office will immediately seek a criminal arrest warrant against them, which, unlike an ICE detainer, sanctuary jails can't ignore.
We're going to flood the system with warrants for criminal illegal immigrants that are in county jails. They can ignore a detainer, but they cannot ignore a criminal arrest warrant.
The federal task force brought us with them as they went to Twin Towers Jail in downtown L.A. to take custody of a previously deported alien they found in their database and filed a warrant on. He was facing local charges for robbery, but the sanctuary jail immediately handed him over to ICE, with California's sanctuary policies unable to protect him from the criminal warrant.
They have no choice. They will comply. And if they don't comply, if they interfere in our ability to arrest a federal felon, they can expect to face consequences.
And the task force tells us once they're up and running at full steam, they project they're going to be able to arrest between 40 and 50 aliens from local sanctuary jails here in SoCal every single week. Now, if this is successful here in Los Angeles, the task force says this could be used as a model to neutralize other sanctuary jurisdictions all across the country.
That, of course, a report by Fox News' Bill Malugin. And again, this is a big deal because prior to, nobody knew what to do. Everybody was afraid of trying to extradite criminal aliens from sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. Well, Christopher Moritz is with us. He's an attorney and author of the book Failed State, A Portrait of California in the Twilight Empire. In the Twilight of Empire. And I want to get his reaction to this approach by the U.S. Attorney from California, which seems like some out-of-the-box thinking that's actually getting results. Christopher Moritz, welcome.
Hi, pleasure to be here. Yeah, I think it's a really great, clever idea. And to be honest, so this book that I wrote was entirely related to exactly what they're targeting. So in 2023, I was burglarized while I was home, kind of home invasion style, 2 nights in a row on one weekend by an MS-13 gangster who had been deported by President Trump in 2018 and then re-entered the country under the Biden invasion and then went on a crime spree doing these kinds of burglaries all over Southern California, and I was one of them. So I think that by targeting re-entry, which is a felony, it's clever because part of the problem is that in sanctuary states, local authorities are not even allowed to disclose the immigration status to federal law enforcement, ICE in particular. So it would be very hard to know who are the illegal aliens, criminals that would be subject to deportation. But in a situation where we're actually focusing on the crime of re-entry, which the federal government would have some insight into it through their own internal databases, that's a really clever way of getting them out, even though, on the basis of re-entry, but of course they're already committing serious crimes and have been convicted of serious crimes. So it's a really great move.
Now, Christopher Moritz, I want to talk a little bit about what happened to you specifically when you were victimized by these MS-13 gangbangers at two nights in a row. Was this a targeted attack that occurred on your home, and why did they come back?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it certainly felt like it. I mean, it was a beyond shocking experience and discombobulating, to beyond belief. And you certainly, conclude that it's targeted, but no, I think that it was very much a crime of opportunity. This particular gang member committed a dozen of these kinds of exact crimes. They're called hot prowl burglaries, which means the victim is home at the time of the break-in. I would happen to be asleep, so I didn't encounter him. But nevertheless, I was there, which is a violent crime. Although during this back in 2023, we were under the tyranny of George Gascon, district attorney for LA County, and he simply decriminalized whole, swaths of the penal code. So property crime was simply not prosecuted. And even though this was a violent property crime, it's a great example of how these sort of broad policies to try and alleviate prison population by going after non-violent crimes. Well, actually, violent crimes get lumped into that too. So with respect to what's happening here, the basis of the sanctuary policy in California is called Senate Bill 54. It was passed in 2017, and it prohibited local jails and county jails from cooperating with any ICE requests, which is called a detainer. So whereby at the end of a prisoner's sentence, ICE would ask for a 48-hour holding period, which they could then make an assessment whether this illegal alien should be deported, and the status of it, and what would be the purview of ICE. But under SB 54, that was made illegal in the state. So, but what's sick about it is that Gavin Newsom, for instance, who's come out against this, it's called Operation, I believe, Guardian Angel, this current thing. Gavin Newsom says, well, we already were cooperating with the feds on serious crime. So if there was a serious crime or like a seriously violent crime, then we would cooperate with those ICE detainers. Except for the fact that you dig into the language of SB 54, you have an entire categories of serious crime, including repeat felony DUIs, forms of assault, obviously like fraud and all that stuff, but even like gang participation and activity, which is a felony, but not captured under the so-called violent exceptions that would theoretically allow cooperation between the state and the feds. So,
Christopher Moritz, I just want to jump in, and before the music plays and we run out of time, I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to get a copy of your book. Where do they go to get a copy of your book, Failed State, A Portrait of California in the Twilight of Empire?
Sure. Amazon is a great for that, and Barnes & Noble. And
is there a website you refer people to follow you and keep up to speed with your work?
Best place to follow me is on X at Chris G. Moritz, Moritz.
Perfect. Chris G. Moritz on Twitter, and the book again is a Failed State, A Portrait of California in the Twilight of Empire. This is a very intriguing topic because A, you experienced it personally, and B, because, some of these stories include people that are committing crimes that are, where they kill people, and you still have the state not willing to participate. So it's bizarre, but I want to thank you for being here, sir. Godspeed to you.
Thank you.
You bet. And amigos, your thoughts, calls, and reactions are coming up right now. Open phones across America, plus plenty more to discuss. Keep it locked right here. I'm Rich Valdez.
Seven 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
After the guest leaves every night and we're doing open phones, you're kind of at the heartbeat of America. You sit there in this radio studio and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
All right, let's go to the phones. Boise, Eugene, Atlanta. I want to start with Eugene, Oregon, KGAL. Let's check in with Kara. Kara, go right ahead.
Hi there, Rich. Good evening, and hello, fellow listeners around the radio campfire.
Thank you.
I wanted to put in something about the South African people. I think I have not heard very much about what's been going on for many, many years. And before I moved to this state, Oregon, from California, I believe I had been hearing about these horrific, unbelievable torture, murders, the stuff that was done the stuff that was done recently to the Jewish people. It has been going on, as far as I've heard, to the South African farmers for, I'm thinking, at least 17 years. It may even have been on PBS at one time. It is a known thing, and people are just now hearing about it like it's just been happening. It's been going on, and it's the most horrendous stories you could hear have been done to the people, their babies, their children, their farm animals. Horrific things done to, and their lands taken away. It's horrendous, and it's a long-term thing. And these people have been here, 350 years or so in South Africa. The farmers have been.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I'd heard of these things every now and again over the years, about these conflicts. Didn't know all about it, and we had a guest on that really educated me on a lot of it and let me know that just because we stopped hearing about it doesn't mean it stopped happening. It's that it's so prevalent that a lot of people don't report on it, and it doesn't make its way all the way over here to the U.S. But and when you say horrific things, you're not kidding. You're talking about torching people's land, raping their children, all sorts of things, kidnapping, beheadings, just very brutal stuff. And I can't help but think, this is something we have to talk about. So I'm glad that we're talking about it. I'm glad that President Trump is bringing it to the forefront, and I'm glad that you're calling us to tell us about it. Now, when you saw what President Trump did, what was your reaction? Do you think this was heavy-handed? Do you think it was appropriate? Do you give him kudos, or are you giving him a thumbs down?
Oh, thank you for asking. Well, I do not have a television. I have the radio, and I have heard bits and pieces, but it sounded really good. And the fellow the leader sounded like a flat-out, smooth-talking liar. And just acting so naive. Oh, no, that doesn't go on.
Where's that?
Really? You couldn't have heard about it in 17 years or so?
Right. And this guy's been in politics, they say, I think 35 years.
Heard his name around. When I heard his name, I don't remember the association, but I got the cold, creepy chills down my spine. And I thought, that guy, what's the memory? And this is unbelievably horrible stuff, the worst stuff you can think of. And it's so big that it has to have been kept from us for a long time. It's not just a boring thing that's somewhere in the back of the news cycle. This is one of those things that's being kept from us because, when you're trying to, well, anyway, I don't want to go into that. Just, they're trying to make certain
it doesn't fit the media narrative, right?
Huh?
It doesn't fit the media's narrative.
Precisely. It doesn't fit the narrative, and it's so important and so big, and people haven't known about it. Think about why.
Yeah, excellent point, Kara. Thank you. I appreciate it. Kara in Eugene, Oregon on KGAL. Very good conversation. And let us continue. Let's go to Todd calling us from Atlanta, Georgia, WGKA. Todd, go right ahead.
Hey, Rich, thanks for taking my call. Great show. I'm glad you touched on these topics, that everybody else ignores. And I think it's disturbing the similarities between the ANC and the DNC. I mean, they've been promoting the institutionalized bigotry of critical race theory and DEI, and that sort of Marxist philosophy is what leads to this kind of racist genocide. They ethnically cleansed white farmers from Zimbabwe, about 20 or 30 years ago, and nobody said anything. And, it fits their narrative with, oppressor and oppressed, the same kind of garbage, they push with, globalize the intifada, the stuff that they push at the campuses. I remember Jimmy Carter calling Israel an apartheid state, that kind of absurdity. Right. And, they can add kill the Boer along with their chant of from the river to the sea. And
it's very interesting you bring that up. Let me ask you something, because I thought that was was a stunning part of the presentation that President Trump did, where the guy was shouting about killing the Boer, right? He was, shoot to kill, and the President Ramaphosa having to sit through that, and at the end of it, just kind of saying, "Oh wow, I hadn't seen that." And my thinking here is, I think this is a tremendous service that President Trump did. What are your thoughts? I think some people have been critical. I turned on a clip of CNN, and they were saying that, it was uncouth of Trump to do this. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that Trump had to do it because the media and the world ignores it because it's white farmers being killed, and to them that's politically correct, justifiable homicide. Just like Luigi Mangione or killing police officers, that's the Marxist mentality of the left. And, it's horrible. And it's also, Trump talks about the Christians being killed in Nigeria too. And he's the only one that brings that up. All these BLM, right. White privilege Democrats, they never even want to touch that subject, but Trump will bring it out, because he cares about people. He cares about their lives, about their souls, and blessed are the peacemakers. So I really appreciate what he's doing.
Amen to that. Well, thank you for the call. I appreciate it, my brother. Shout out to WGKA Hotlanta, and I want to revisit this because again, President Trump in the Oval Office with President Ramaphosa today. Discussing exactly what happened. Listen to this.
The problem we have, and the way, a correct and a fair media exposes things. But we have a very corrupt media. They won't even report this. If this were the other way around, it would be the biggest story. Now, I will say apartheid, terrible. That was the biggest story. That was reported all the time. This is sort of the opposite of apartheid. What's happening now is never reported. Nobody knows about it. All we know is we're being inundated with people, with white farmers from South Africa. And it's a big problem. Marco Rubio was telling me he's never seen anything like it. The numbers of people that want to leave South Africa because they feel they're going to be dead very soon.
Very interesting stuff, right? Whoever thought becoming a farmer was going to be the thing that got you killed, right? I mean, the Christian genocide in Africa and even into Asia is something that is lamentable, but well known, well documented. This, somewhat known, somewhat documented, not well known or well documented. And I think after today, it has a higher profile on it. So kudos to President Trump for shedding light on something that needed to have some light shed on it. And I'm going to take a pause right here. We're going to come right back. We've got more calls to go in Idaho and other places. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
President Trump says the U.S. is getting closer to a nuclear deal with Iran, confirming the country has the U.S. proposal, but giving few details. Trump warned that Iran has to move quickly or something bad is going to happen. Trade between the two countries is currently significantly restricted. Trump says Iran wants to trade with the U.S. and that he's okay with it, adding he's using trade to settle scores. The president making those comments on his way back from his whirlwind Middle East trip, visiting 3 countries in 4 days.
So again, President Trump seemingly making progress on the front of scoring a deal with Iran. Will the goodwill last? I don't know, but I want to get your thoughts, calls, and reactions on this. Let's go to the phones. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Giving us a call from Idaho. Let's go to our man, Paulie. Go for it, my man.
Thanks for taking my call, Rich.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's a touchy subject. It's such a powerful weapon. We've only used it twice in the case of war, and that was Nagasaki and Hiroshima in Japan. And that seemed to end the war, which was good, but it opened up a can of worms. I don't think we're ready for it to stay. But back when Reagan was in office, I was a caddy for the 8 years that he was in office, and one of his men, George Schultz, was coming to play at the club. He was a member there too, and it was quite a memory I have of seeing him pull up in that car that was armored. It was an armored Cadillac, and 4 guys would jump out, and they had big bulges underneath their jacket, and they took control of the situation everywhere. I mean, you just kind of froze. Anyway, long story short, he was one of the greatest statesmen, I believe, that we've ever had. And I see some qualities in Rubio that George Schultz had. And, it's not just the fact that we don't want Iran to have the nukes. It's what they're going to do with them if they do get them.
What do you suppose is going to happen if they get them?
So I think, having said that, I think it
Paul,
maybe...
what do you think Iran does if they get nukes?
I think immediately, if they have a short range delivery system, they'll hit Israel, and if they have an ICBM, International Continental Ballistic Missile, ICBM, they'd want to hit us.
Yeah,
I mean that's the natural progression, because they've been telling us for 44 years that debt to the great Satan and debt to Israel.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to deal with people that have been calling for your death and destruction for multiple decades. I think you raised a good point there. Paul, thanks for the call, brother. Shout out to everybody in KBFI land. And amigos, we'll continue with the rest of your calls and more straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. It's Rich Valdez keeping you company here, working the late night shift with you. And I've got a clip. This cut here is the Attorney General of the state of New York, Letitia James, a.k.a. Tish James, who yesterday mistakenly claimed that her Virginia residency that was listed on her loan documents were just a simple error. Listen to this.
As you know, we filed a lawsuit against Donald Trump and his family. We secured $454 million judgment against him, which is on appeal. The case is on appeal. I have no idea when that case will be decided. This investigation into me is nothing more than retribution. It's baseless. It has to do with the fact that on a power of attorney, I mistakenly indicated that I was a state of Virginia, but prior to that, I had indicated to the mortgage broker that, in fact, in bold cap letters, that I am not a resident of Virginia and never will be. And in the mortgage application, I indicated that I would not live in Virginia and I was not a resident. They just took the power of attorney and they're using that as a basis for enforcement for their investigation, when in reality, power of attorney was never used to determine my eligibility for a mortgage for my niece for a home in the state of Virginia.
Well, isn't that interesting? Because that seems to be exactly what she claimed Trump did, right? Falsifying business records. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, President Trump struck back saying that she is a major fraud and did all of this for tax reasons. Listen to this.
I don't know what it is currently, but Letitia James, who's the Attorney General of New York State, it seemed, I'm not involved in that at all. I know that it's being handled by various groups, I guess, but it's major fraud, mortgage documents, and fraudulent everything. I think she said the father was her husband, which she had to have a husband, so she chose her father, and she put it down, and she had didn't she sign in Virginia, yet she said she lived in Virginia, yet she's the New York State Attorney General. She did that for tax reasons, so she could take advantage of taxes. And she had the wrong number of units. She had a much different number, which wouldn't have allowed her to qualify and scam the government. So I don't know. I think she's very bad for New York, but I really don't know too much about it, but I appreciate the question.
So Tish James is a fake, phony fraud, and I can't wait to see where this goes. Now, of course, she's saying this is retribution. Well, she literally ran on the idea in her position, which is an elected position, vote for me, and I promise to go after Donald Trump. So, I mean, it seemed like political persecution from the very beginning, and I don't think he's getting her back. I think he's just pointing out the hypocrisy. Right? And the Department of Justice is saying, hold on a second, you did the wrong thing. We're going to point that out because you're so good at pointing it out as well. And thanks for shedding the light on so many things, Madam Attorney General. So maybe she should be thankful that, she's informed so many people that are now willing to uphold the law. I don't know. That's what I think she should do. But anyway, I want to talk about chemtrails, right? Those are those white things that are, they look like they came out the rear end of an airplane, right? And if you put enough of them together, it almost look like stratus clouds or like some sort of long, drawn-out cloud. But usually they're just these white lines in the sky. And my, I have a brother who frequents in the world of conspiracy theories, or as he calls them, conspiracy facts. And it's always interesting to see, how those stories develop and what the next step in so many of them is. So we're going to find out, what is the story with chemtrails? Is it conspiracy theory? Is it a naturally occurring thing? Is it nefarious? What is the deal? We're going to talk with our guest in a little bit about that. But until then, make sure you keep it locked right here. Don't go anywhere. Don't get lost. It's Rich Valdez, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Go.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be here with you this Wednesday evening. We're live, we're national. It's 7 minutes past the top of the hour, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you guys. Here's the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And despite all the crazy things we've been seeing in the media, one of the things that I think really was important today was President Trump calling out the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, on the genocide of a minority group, white farmers known as Afrikaners, in South Africa. And this has been going on for a number of years, but it's now becoming public knowledge, right? It's something that everyone's going to be forced to talk about, including NBC News' Peter Alexander. Now, Peter Alexander was talking about this and tried to change the subject. In a room filled with South African delegates, the president of South Africa and President Trump, while there's a video and everything, Peter Alexander says, I'm an inquiring mind. I want to know. I'm an intrepid reporter, and I'm going to switch gears to the airplane that Qatar gave you. Listen to this, number 7.
Mr. President, the Pentagon announced it would be accepting a Qatari jet to be used as Air Force One.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You know, you got to get out of here. What does this have to do with the Qatari jet? They're giving the United States Air Force a jet, okay? And it's a great thing. We're talking about a lot of other things. It's NBC trying to get off the subject of what you just saw. You are a real, you're a terrible reporter. Number one, you don't have what it takes to be a reporter. You're not smart enough. But for you to go into a subject about a jet that was given to the United States Air Force, which is a very nice thing. They also gave $5.1 trillion worth of investment in addition to the jet. Go back. You ought to go back to your studio at NBC because Brian Roberts and the people that run that place, they ought to be investigated. They are so terrible the way you run that network, and you're a disgrace. No more questions from you. Go ahead.
Tell us how you really feel, Mr. President. Kudos to President Trump for always just telling it like it is, calling these people out for who they are. And I for one, I don't get tired of that stuff. I think the more you do it, the more it needs to be done. Why? Because there is this kind of unwritten rule in Washington that everybody's going to tighten their tie and look down their nose and lift their chin real high to maintain and uphold the pomp and circumstance of Washington. And Trump says, screw your Washington, screw your nose, right? I love that about him, that he keeps it real. And some may think that this cheapens things. I think it adds incredible value. And the reason it does, because people relate to that. The people listening to this program are not hoity-toity types that look down their nose. They don't, right? These are regular, real people. You've got truck drivers that are out there, people driving ambulances and police cars, people working the late shift in different industries. And these people all work hard. People aren't here to celebrate the pomp and circumstance of the deep state. They want to know what's going on. And the problem wasn't asking the question about the Qatari jet. The problem was the severity of what President Trump had just done, showing the president of another country as a guest in the White House, saying, "Hey, look, by the way, there's this thing going on here, and it's been brought to my attention, and I want to bring it to yours." Only to be met with the president of South Africa claiming he didn't know what was going on. He says, where's that? I've never seen that before. So I think that when you see these little dust-ups of President Trump pushing back on these things, I think they're important. I think they're necessary because it's key that we have these conversations. It's key that this dialogue occurs, in my opinion, right? I think that you need to let people know. It's kind of like sometimes I do that. Now, I try not to get too strict. I mean, talk radio generally, prior to me getting this particular show, I always tried to keep my calls on track with the conversation, right? We were having a conversation about X. I didn't want to necessarily talk about Y. I want to talk about X. On this program, we give you a lot of latitude so that you can really bring whatever topic you want to the table, which is why I've learned to be so patient and let people, spew the sometimes their venom or whatever crazy they want to get out there, let it out of their system, and then we talk about it. But in general, people want to stay on topic. So President Trump, again, offended seemingly for NBC News' lack of interest in covering the genocide of the white people in South Africa, the white farmers. And I understand that. I understand. I'd be upset, too, if I was trying to point that out with this whole visit. And you've got one reporter saying, yeah, real nice story, bro, cool story, but I want to know what's going on with this Qatari jet. I think it's really uncouth and good for him for being that blunt. Now, what else? Chemtrails. Are these things nefarious? Are they just a little bit of steam that's let off by a plane that happens to be zigzagging in certain places? Is it cloud seeding, as it's been said to be in the past? What is the real reason that we have these planes that are up in the sky leaving these white trails, these white designs in the air? Now, some big critics, they say this is very bad news and it can be harmful to us. So we're going to get to the bottom of it with our guest, Dr. Gregory Wrightstone. He is a geologist. He's also the president of the CO2 Coalition, and I can't wait to have that discussion with him coming up. Plus, your thoughts, calls, and reactions to everything that's going on in the news these days, in particular this evening. Here's the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Thanks for what you do. You have so many people. You ask the questions that if a viewer had a microphone, they would ask that question, and you seem to always ask it right at the right time. So God bless you, my friend.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. It's Rich Valdez, and a bit of breaking news. There's been a shooting outside of the American Jewish, the Capitol Jewish Museum, just near the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Washington field office in Northwest D.C. And according to Metropolitan Police Department, a man and a woman were killed after shots rang out just outside the building there. This is the latest that we've got. This is just from about an hour and a half ago. Officials say the shooting occurred near 3rd and F Street Northwest. The shots rang out just around 9:15 p.m. at the beginning of our show near the Capitol Jewish Museum, the FBI field office, and the D.C. Public Defender's Office. The American Jewish Committee has confirmed that they hosted an event at the museum Wednesday evening. Police said they're searching for a man with a goatee wearing a blue jacket, blue jeans, who was last seen eastbound on F Street Northwest. Here's a quote from the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, Danny Danon. He says the fatal shooting that took place outside the event that took place at the Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C., in which an Israeli embassy employee was also injured, is a depraved act of anti-Semitic terrorism. Again, that's Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, Danny Danon. So that's what's going on there. As we get more information on that, we'll bring it to you. Some news from last night that I had at the tip of my tongue and I just didn't get out to all of our listeners in KDKA land. There's a new mayor in Pittsburgh, and this, I think, is a big deal. I think some say that the old mayor was very liberal. The new mayor, they say, is a little more moderate. I don't know if that's true, but candidate O'Connor beating the incumbent, Mayor Gainey, in Pittsburgh's Democratic mayoral primary. So from one Democrat to another. And as we get more information on that, I'll keep you posted as well. That's our friends in KDKA land, which is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Now, a couple of people that are favorites on this program, I've had the pleasure of interviewing both of them, Dr. Phil and Bobby Kennedy Jr. We're having a conversation on Dr. Phil's program regarding what we're about to have a conversation about with Dr. Gregory Wrightstone. Listen to this.
My biggest concern is the stratospheric aerosol injections that are continuously peppered on us every day. Bromium, aluminum, strontium, it's sprayed in our skies all day long. And I know you've talked to Dane Wigington about this. He seems to be one of the experts in the field.
Is there a question?
Yes. How do we stop it?
That is not happening in my agency. You know, we don't do that. It's done, we think, by DARPA. And a lot of it now is coming out of the jet fuel.
Yes,
so,
sir.
you know, those materials are put in jet fuel. I'm going to do everything in my power to stop it. We're bringing on somebody who's going to think only about that, find out who's doing it, and holding them accountable.
That, again, Bobby Kennedy, Secretary, Cabinet Member for the Department of Health and Human Services, saying that's not coming out of HHS. These chemtrails that the young woman was describing are likely coming from the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA for short. And this is, again, just part of what's going on in the national discourse pretty recently. Now, to get some reaction to that, I want to bring in one of the pros, none other than Dr. Gregory Wrightstone. He's a geologist and the executive director of the CO2 Coalition. He's the best-selling author of A Very Convenient Warming, How Modest Warming and More CO2 Are Benefiting Humanity. Dr. Gregory Wrightstone, welcome back, sir.
Oh, thank you for having me on. Yeah, I'm going to anger a lot of your listeners. And
I do that all the time, so feel free.
Okay. I'm going to tell you where the science leads us. And as executive director of the CO2 Coalition, I lead a group of, we're approaching 200 of the top experts in the world that are pushing back against the consensus opinion, if you will, of climate change. And that we believe that actually modest warming, we are in a warming trend. The combination of modest warming and more CO2 are hugely benefiting humanity. Mainly through the greening of the earth and complete increase of crop production. And so what we do is we're scientists, and we pursue this, where the science leads us, we take us. And we've looked, and I have looked.
Interject, Doc, if you don't mind. Specifically to the conversation that Kennedy was having with Dr. Phil and the question the young lady asked, which was about these chemtrails.
Yeah, and I'm getting to that. I'm just want to establish some of our scientific credentials, and that we've looked at this, and the science that we've looked at this is really a meteorological issue here that we have. What we find is that this is just not factually correct. That there's not a global conspiracy of chemical laden chemtrails being sprayed by jets, thousands and thousands of jets every day in our atmosphere. It's very simply explained by condensation of the water vapor that's created by burning of jet fuel. And it's what we see is, in fact, there's been a lot of scientific evidence that when we look at for example, our stealth aircraft, they have to be that's a huge thing that's involved with them is the stealth craft we have, our fighters and bombers. They need to understand when and where these contrails, of course, not chemtrails, are being created. They're different elevations and it's different humidities. And when the right humidity and temperature is available, they create contrails. And of course, if you have a stealth fighter or stealth bomber, you're going to give yourself away if you have a contrail that's being created by your emitting of water vapor behind your jet or whatever it is, your bomber that you're flying. So they need to get to the right altitude, and it's just not. The science just does not support. There's a fellow by the name of Dale Winnington with Geochem that's promoting this, and his science is just factually incorrect. And we see this. We see people say there's an increase. I've never seen so many chemtrails that I've ever. There's more every year. Well, yeah, because there's more jets every year. We have a very good. We know very much how much CO2 is being emitted by jets every year. That's pretty well documented, and the correlation to CO2 and water vapor is a direct linear correlation. There's twice as much water vapor as CO2 being emitted when you burn jet fuel. And
so nothing, no big gotcha there.
We can document that it's been increasing year after year after year, and that's why we see more of these contrails, not chemtrails. It's frustrating to me as a scientist to see that there's so much disinformation out there. People
the
claim,
conspiracies are always a lot sexier, Doc.
Well, they are, and people say, well, there's aluminum that's being emitted.
We'll talk about that on the other side of this break, as well as your thoughts on the Department of Energy rolling back a bunch of regulations. I want to get your take on that as well. Folks, keep it locked right here. It's Rich Valdez coming right back with Dr. Gregory Wrightstone, scientist and executive director of the CO2 Coalition. We're going to talk about slashing regulation at the Department of Energy. Don't go anywhere.
Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
The great news is all we really have to do is undo all the wrong-headed policies of the last administration. You know, they came in saying they promised they were going to get rid of fossil fuels. Well, they were a little over 80% of American energy when they were elected, and they were a little over 80% of American energy when they left. The thing they did do was make them all more expensive. And they did that by just getting policies to get in the way of the commercial production of energy. So we're clearing out a lot of that underbrush. to make it easier, re-permitting natural gas export terminals, common sense permitting and regulation on building pipelines. We are gonna give a help and a nudge to kickstart nuclear energy in the United States again. Very excited about that. Geothermal is a new emerging technology, but we'll end this sort of obsession with only wind, solar, and batteries that are still less than 4% of American energy. But they were all in on just that tiny little quadrant of the energy sector.
That is the Secretary of the Department of Energy, Chris Wright, talking about how they're cutting back on regulations that Biden put into place. And the United States Department of Energy proposing cutting 47 regulations, what they're calling the largest deregulatory effort in the agency's history. And this is part of President Trump's zero-based regulation initiative, aiming to eliminate or modify regulations that are said to drive up the costs and limit consumer choices. So I want to talk about that and the associated costs that go with that, and cost savings potentially, with our guest, Gregory Wrightstone, Executive Director of the CO2 Coalition. Sir, talk to us about this biggest rollback of federal regulations in the Department of Energy's history.
Yeah, it's great news. I met with Chris Wright before he became before he was confirmed in his Denver offer. We met for 2 hours and discussed it. He's solid. He has a firm understanding of the science about climate change, and he understands and agrees with me that the modest warming that we've seen combined with more CO2 is benefiting humanity and ecosystems, and it's great. And when I tell you this, when I tell you I'm pro-choice, don't cut me off right away. In fact I'm proudly pro-choice. I'm in favor of giving your listeners the choice of what kind of car to drive, how to heat their homes, what temperature to heat their homes, what kind of appliances they can buy. And what they've been doing prior to Chris Wright and the Trump administration coming in, their options and their choices were being limited. It was only government-controlled solutions to what kind of air. Just everyone listening right now, look around your room. You're probably sitting in your home right now in the comfort of your home. Look around. Everything that's powered by electricity has probably already been regulated in what you could buy by the Department of Energy or the EPA. Your ceiling fans, your dishwasher, your washer dryer, your shower head. Everything's been regulated out of the sense of a false climate crisis. For example, the shower head that Donald Trump has talked about so much. It's a one-size-fits-all program, isn't it? Because Las Vegas, Phoenix, Los Angeles all have a water restriction problem. Now, the entire country's been subjected to that. And when you buy a new shower head, I bought one for my new home in just south of Tampa. When I turned that shower head on, it was like, if you'll forgive me, it was like an old man peeing. It was just a dribble. It was like That's a dribble coming out. And I had my son-in-law come. There were 3 restrictors that he knocked out. And now when you turn it on, it's like Niagara Falls coming out. It's wonderful.
So and you're saying these are regulations that are being put on shower heads because of climate change rules.
Exactly.
And Gregory Wrightstone, I just want to add, my daughter, I just picked her up from the airport, Newark Airport, by the way. There was significant delays. But I picked her up from visiting her sister, my other daughter, in Florida. And she came home and she took a shower. And she closed the bathroom door and she turned on the water. And I heard her say, water pressure, thank God. And I didn't get that until you just said what you said.
Well, yeah, and think about it. We've got, if you buy a new dishwasher under the Biden administration, it takes, my wife has been complaining, we have this new dishwasher. It's almost 2.5 hours to run. And our old dishwasher was 35 minutes? And it came out of the dishes were clean. And we have the same thing with toilets, with flow restriction. And it's a one-size-fits-all problem, where because L.A. and Phoenix and Las Vegas have a water restriction problem, they're going to impose the same thing. We're going to impose water restrictions on New York, Pennsylvania, Florida, where there is no water problem. And now you have to flush the toilet twice instead of once. And these are just common sense things. It's just stupid. It's a government. It's a nanny state. And they systematically, Chris Wright, thank God, is rolling this back. Lee Zeldin at EPA, and hopefully Burgum at the Department of Interior and others, Sean Duffy at Department of Transportation, all these people are systematically, hopefully, going to be rolling back these restrictions on our freedoms. What they've been doing is imposing systematic restrictions on our freedoms, and when they do that, they're limiting our choices of what we can buy. I should have the choice to buy and spend a little bit more to get something that's efficient and usable instead of something that they say we have to buy. And it's just ridiculous. And we at the CO2 Coalition, we're nearly 200 of the top scientists in the world that are pushing back against this man-made climate crisis. And what we're doing is we've actually 2 weeks ago completed a 47-page report by doctors Richard Lindzen and William Happer, two of the top eminent physicists of our time. And we hand-delivered that report to the top regulatory officials, including Chris Wright, Lee Zeldin, Burgum, and 4 other regulatory heads. And it's a legal strategy we've devised that we believe eventually these regulatory reforms are going to end up for the Supreme Court. And so we've devised a legal strategy. And that's part of what the CO2 Coalition does is push back and provide the science, the data that's needed to combat this notion of a climate crisis.
Gregory Wrightstone, let everybody know where they can learn more about the CO2 Coalition and the work that you're doing.
Yeah, CO2coalition.org. And we've also got a wonderful learning center for education where I'm here at the Orlando, Florida Home Teachers Association, largest homeschooling convention. Go to, we're exhibiting here. Go to CO2learningcenter.com. We have free materials for homeschooling parents, charter schools. It's our mission to provide this information at no cost to charter schools and homeschools. CO2learningcenter.com.
Amigos, make sure you get a copy or 2 copies of Gregory Wrightstone's book, A Very Convenient Warming, How Modest Warming and More CO2 Are Benefiting Humanity. Gregory Wrightstone, Executive Director of the CO2 Coalition, I want to thank you for being here and shedding some light on this information. And you are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you so much.
You bet. God bless you, sir. And amigos, your calls, thoughts, and reactions are coming up right now. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 888-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdez with an S.
I love your show. I love your views on things. I enjoy the interviews that you have, and I just wanted to say how much I appreciate you.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, to the phones we go. Let's go to Joplin, Missouri. Check in with Karen. Go right ahead, KZRG. Go for it.
Hi there. I was just wanting to comment on the chemtrails. When he was talking about them, it sounded like he was more talking about the jet trails that dissipate quickly behind a jet, because we've seen jets go by years, and the trail they leave dissipates fairly quickly. But these trails, these that are crisscrossing through our sky, they're thick, and they stay there for hours. They're just not regular jet trails, and so I was wanting to
point that out. It's a good point.
About that, because it just sounded like what he was talking about was two different things.
Well, this has been the age-old debate on that, right? The chemtrail versus the contrail. And I can tell you, I don't have a preferred take on this. I really don't, for whatever reason. I feel like that is so literally above me that there's nothing I can do about it. But I argue with my brothers all the time. And it's not much of an argument. It's more like, I don't care. It doesn't affect me one way or the other. Even if it is affecting me, I don't really know, and I can't really prove it. But it is an interesting point that you make, that you're right. Most water vapor does kind of go away very quickly, whereas there are days where I see these crisscross patterns. I live near a small airport, and I see it around there. And you're right. It doesn't look like typical water vapor that typically just goes away. So very good point. Maybe next time we talk with Gregory Wrightstone or some other climate expert that we bring on, we can pose that question. Thank you, Karen. Shout out to you in Joplin, Missouri, and everybody tuning in on KZRG. And we continue. I want to go to Frank calling us from Evergreen, Montana. KOFI. Go right ahead, sir.
Hi, Rich. Well, there's lots of things we can't, talk about when it's in the above state. There's a big gray area there. But one area that we could think about, and I think Trump should consider, is a version 2 of the Trump Bible, and it would be the American Catholic version. And I think it would be printed in the United States, and it would make more money. And it benefits more people.
Yeah, there's a lot of translations of the Bible out there, and I'm all for it. I figure, you know what, go with the one that you like. I have some family that stick with the King James. I personally like the New Living Translation, and I get it. I know that there's some arguments against some of the references in the NIV, the New International Version, which is why some people don't like it. But at the end of the day, I don't think you lose anything. Even if there's an omitted verse, that verse is repeated a little bit later. So for me, not a big deal on having these different translations, because they all, I've yet to see one that really changes the meaning of something. And again, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a theologian. I'm a talk show host. But very interesting point that you bring up. Frank in Evergreen, Montana. Good to hear your voice, by the way. And shout out to everybody in KOFI land. Let's go a little more here. Kevin's calling us from Englewood, Florida, WENG. Kevin, what's on your mind?
Good evening, Rich. I just don't believe that the genocide in South Africa is going to be that much of an issue, because we have also other conflicts going on, M23 in the DRC, and then there's also the RSS in South Sudan. Are we going to extend help to them? If so, I don't really believe that's putting America first. Africa, the continent, has a lot of problems in general. We can't help out every single country.
That's a fair point. You're right. I think we can't help out every single country. I would suspect that given that there was a very influential advisor in the White House from South Africa, namely Elon Musk, that this is probably something that, he brought to the table saying, hey, look, did you know this is going on? And having an intimate knowledge of it likely, brought it to the forefront, which is the case, honestly, with everything, right? That's how all politics works. Reagan and Tip O'Neill had this saying about all politics being local. And if you think of so many of the bills that get passed, Megan's Law, for example, right? That's parents who lost a little girl named Megan. And it wasn't until that happened that they could codify that, right? And it was because somebody knew somebody and it got them in front of the right politicians where these things get codified as law. And the Lake and Riley Act, right? Again, another very personal story where we got to meet people and it becomes personal. So I think these are, that's kind of how politics works. And but you're right. There's plenty of plight out there, and there are Christians being slaughtered. There's minority groups all over the globe, in one place or another, that are being slaughtered, and for one reason or another. And we can't do something about everything, but today we did a little bit of something to remedy a situation. And I can't be mad at anybody for trying to help in that regard. I think that it's a good thing. I think it was good a couple of years ago when there was a lot of focus on the Uyghur Muslims in China. And this is the life we live, right? We do what we can when we can do it, and we keep it moving and focus on usually the greater good. So a very good point. Thank you for your call. I appreciate it. I'm going to take a quick pause right here. We're going to come back with your thoughts, calls, and reactions from Illinois, from Vermont, and everywhere else across the country. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, we continue. Let's go to Katie, Yorktown, Virginia, WTAR. Katie, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Thank you. Rich Valdez, my man.
Yes, ma'am.
You're on the line?
Yes, you're on with America.
Oh, this is wonderful. This is wonderful. I want to tell you, I love the way you sign off with all the people, it seems like, when you say, you're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot.
Oh, well, thank you.
And I have a particular reason for liking that, because I live in the historic, actually 17th century village, 1691 it was incorporated, of Yorktown, Virginia, where the American Revolution ended. And we achieved our identity as a sovereign nation.
Isn't that something? You got to love a slice of Americana, and Yorktown definitely provides that. Katie, you are a gentlewoman and a scholar and a patriot for saying all of those kind things to me. Thank you, and Godspeed to you. I want to shout out Tony in Montreal, who says that Biden's health cover-up is a travesty. I agree with that. And Frank in Elmwood Park, what did you have to say, Frank? And can you say it in 10 seconds?
Yes. Why do you pick on California so much about the economy?
I think it's one of the biggest
murder?
problems we have in America, just right next to New Jersey and New York, and maybe followed by Detroit, as a city. But these things are leading the way on what's bad in America. So you got to keep picking on them so that people know what's going on and know what not to do. Anyway, hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.